Barbara Montgomery, who is the New York regional manager in sales. When we were at Park and 39th, she came to us out of nowhere.
I see Marvin, and I walk into this, we're in the basement with these cement floors, and I walk into Marvin, and he's got a desk there with papers piled beyond his head. It's only actually a very small desk, tiny desk.
And people know Barbara will picture how she came in and said, "I'd like to work here." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, why not?"
And I would go in when he was not on the phone or whatever. He'd look around and he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I have a question." So he'd explain something to me. I mean, I didn't know what a luminaire was, a lamp, a fixture, whatever. He'd explain it to me, and I'd sit there, I'd have a blank look on my face, and he'd say, "You understand?" I'd say, "No." He'd explain it again. "You understand?" I said, "No." He'd say, "You're stupid." I said, "Yeah." And he'd go through explaining it all over again. And you know what? That's what kind of endeared him to me, because even though I was pretty, dumb back then, although I could still theoretically be dumb. But anyway, even though I was pretty dumb back then, he took the time, and I would kind of hang around after hours because he was so busy. And he took the time, and it was like, gee, you know what, this man is pretty fantastic. Not only that, he was doing something that wasn't a first in the business, and still is actually. The first was, number one, to move a woman into a lighting showroom, because at that point we had a nice showroom too, but a black woman. And I'm still it. The whole industry, 30 some odd years later, Barbara is still it, and it was all because of Marvin.
Stan Miller came to us early on when we were at Park and 39th, one of our original second office space in New York, I guess. He came in with his cousin Len, who was his partner, and they were just getting into the gelatin business. We really became fast friends, and we're friends to this day. We still see each other on a social basis, and I've watched Stan build that business into a very large, top-of-the-line business. Everybody knows Roscoe.
First off, what can you tell me about Crossover International?
Well, that's a side story. Somewhere in time, Stan and I decided we'd be entrepreneurs, which we are in a way.
But Marv had a guest, a friend over, actually, who was an architect from Italy, from Rome, Frank Iovino. In the course of conversation, Frank was concerned about his career as an architect, interested in something entrepreneurial, getting involved in business. Maybe I got Marv into it, I'm not sure, but...
We had access to an Italian designer who worked at one of the big design firms in New York, and he told us that Italy would go wild over jeans. This was pre-jeans in Europe.
I don't know how Marv found them, but somehow we met a man who had a company that made jeans. An older man, probably Marv's age now. We made an arrangement with him. Through the whole conversation, he referred to Marv as Mel.
So we went into the clothing business, something we knew nothing about, and something we should not have touched with a 10-foot pole.
We did get an order in Italy for jeans from Renaissance, which was their big department store. I mean, it was comparable to selling Kmart or something, jeans. It was quite impressive. We shipped it to Italy, to Frank. Frank delivered it. Marv got a hysterical phone call from Frank that the jeans were just trash. I mean, they were terrible. The sizes were wrong. The packing was wrong. Some had one leg longer than the other. It was a disaster.
We get these screaming messages from Frank over the phone or on the computer. "Help, help." And he says, "Where's the stuff? I've got to have it. They're going to kill me."
We had sent goods, paid for the goods, and I believe most of them, other than the Renaissance order, were saleable. But we never saw any money. So I said to Marv, "You've got to talk to Frank. I mean, we've got to get some money back. We paid everything. What do we get?"
At the time, we didn't even know where Frank was. He was hiding somewhere. So we were riding along a cliff somewhere, I remember, in a car Frank's driving, and we're heading for this Italian firm, which is a big-name firm. And I started talking to Frank. I said, Frank, what happened to that job where we had to get all these lamps and the car starts going, "Rrr." I wasn't sure whether it was Frank or the road. Then when I got down to where all the samples, we had a couple of $1,000 worth of samples, the car, "Rrr," and I stopped. And as I told it to Stan, I said, Stan, he was going to take us right off that cliff if I kept up. Stan, we have to forget it. And ultimately, we just forgot it. It was fun, though. I have to admit, it's fun. Who was a big lighting consultant now, came out of school and started with us and spent some time with lighting services.
My history of lighting services lasted 7 years, and by the time the 7 years were over, I think that I had got the equivalent of about 3 advanced degrees in every manner of lighting-related work.
And he actually went to Century, I think, for a year when he left us with Cook, and then became a consultant with Jules Fisher.
And so it was, for me, an extraordinary opportunity, one that I couldn't have duplicated intentionally if I had imagined it. And it was Marvin who either wittingly or unwittingly provided the opportunity and the support.
When I'd have interns like Steve Margulies.
My very first summer working in this industry was working for Marvin, and it was an interesting summer.
I tell him, the best way to learn lighting aside from studying in the IES, etc., is do it. Get your hands on some lights. Do an off-Broadway. Play with some lights, because that's when I think you get the real feeling of what lighting is and what it can do. It can't be all from books and from classes. You really have to do it.
He taught me basic principles, and I was able to apply those for years. And you know, we've done pretty well by that. And one thing that I also learned from him is that spend time developing your people, because it comes back to you in spades.
You know, that's one thing that he definitely has taught me over the years is, you know, don't be satisfied if it's okay. You know, you really have to make it the best you can. And he was good at that.
And he had some outstanding designs, and he was a very interesting, clever person, and we related well to each other.
One of the things that I recognized from our relationship very early on is that he was very interested in art, in the arts and design, and obviously that was a passion of mine as well.
Ken came in as a designer, and now Ken is an officer. He's vice president of research and design at LSI, and Ken has been a pillar of strength. He's terrific. To think that we exchanged good information so that these people could go where they've gone. We learned, they learned from me. We all learned from each other. And we're all doing things that we want to do, which is lighting. No, I would say I'm in a great position. With Dan running the company, Dan's president of the company, I'm just on as like a consultant and chairman of the board. But
it's really his energy and enthusiasm for lighting that really, you know, connected with me and, you know, rubbed off on me. And, you know, and that was just a huge catalyst in me coming in here every single day and, you know, and wanting to do something that's going to make Lighting Services Inc. better and better and better. So a lot of that is owed to, you know, all the things that he did early on for me that still stay with me and still is part of that aspect that you know, that's a driving force to, you know, to me wanting to succeed here. And he's had a large role in that.
And it kind of makes you think sometimes when you start thinking about all this, as I've been doing, knowing about the tape thing. But you just keep enjoying life, that's it. That's the secret. You live from day to day. You do what you like to do. And I could never understand the people who would stay on a job that they didn't like, go through life, and then suddenly someday end up saying, what have I done? What have I done? And that's what I tell the people when they ask about, you know, about your life. I say, you have to do what you like. Whether there's lots of money or not, you've got to like it. Otherwise, you've wasted your whole life. In retrospect, that's how I see it. And thank goodness I didn't waste my life. I'm enjoying it just as much now as ever.